国安的这个专家，特别第一位我们这个张旭成教授他不只是在美国教书也大概有30多年之久然后回来以后在国安会也担任过这个副秘书长那么对这个国际安全的问题是一个很难得的专家。那现在我们请这个张教授
Thank you. 我要讲的这个会用 PowerPoint 那么因为我是评论他们的文章，所以我要用英文讲，我向他们提出一些问题。Pleased to comment on the 2 excellent papers by Ambassador Standen and Director Tasik on U.S. pivot to Asia and its impact on international relations in the region. The 2 papers help readers to better understand U.S. policy and its impact on international relations in Asian Pacific. And they talk about the variables and development in the region, and their suggestions on Taiwan's role are also very enlightening and I think important to us who are concerned about Taiwan's future. Now, Ambassador Standen indicated that the pivot is inevitable. He cites Hillary Clinton's article on America's Pacific Century in Foreign Policy, which provides policy argument underscoring the pivot and the 6 action programs of that pivot. I think Hillary Clinton is unique. I don't recall any other Secretary of State ever publish an article try to justify or explaining American foreign policy. Now, Tasik used the model of international politics in China's ancient times. And applied to contemporary international relations. And he also utilized power transition theory to explain the development of China in the past several decades, from Zhou Enlai, Deng Xiaoping's for modernization, reform, opening, enrich the nation, and strengthen the military. I think for Chinese and Japanese are all very familiar with this concept. 富国强兵，富国强兵. Yeah, I think we all know this, and the Chinese are doing that. They got a plan, yes. So this is something that's very important to understand what China is up to. When the Soviet Empire collapsed and the Cold War ended in 1991, Americans, notably, well, my fellow State College resident, Pennsylvania, Francis Fukuyama, was quick to proclaim the end of history. Well, he believes that the Western liberal democracy and capitalism has prevailed over communism and the planning economy. I think his optimism was premature. And he and many other American commentators have never really studied seriously Chinese communist ideology, their oral plan. This is really the problem that we are facing today. And we even have US officials like Robert Zoellick urging China to become a responsible stakeholder and urging China to cooperate with the United States to help solve regional and international problems. Well, we know that President Bush asked Jiang Zemin many times to rein in North Korea because North Korea is developing nuclear weapon. And Jiang Zemin told him, hey, that's your problem, not mine. And we see that President Obama has talked to Hu Jintao and now Xi Jinping, try to outsource the program of North Korea to China. And Hu Jintao and Xi Jinping said no. China's no Boy Scouts. They are not going to help the United States and to somehow strengthen the international order that's dominated by the United States. And somehow very few American decision makers understand that. And that's really the problem. That well, after all, the Chinese communists, they are Marxist and they are revisionist. They're going to challenge the Pax Americana and bring changes to the international order and its rules of the game. So this is something that we really have to take seriously. I think John Tasek talked about that too, whether they have a plan or not. And yes, 上兵伐谋, China is doing that very well. Now, when you mention Sun Tzu strategy, one area, one particular principle you didn't mention, that was deception. 兵不厌诈. The Chinese are very good at the deception. They say nice things to you, but they never carry that out. And so this is the tactics of a deception, stratagem of a deception is quite something we ought to know. And already we find that Xi Jinping's major power relationship, one parity with the United States. You mentioned, well, the conversation of a Chinese admiral with Timothy Keating. That was 2007, 2008. And of course, Xi Jinping already put that into the party platform in the 18th Party Congress in November 2012. And China is beginning to, starting to really establish a new order. The so-called Jinzhuang Yinhang, the BRICS Bank, that, well, in July in Brazil, it's challenged to the Bretton Woods system, World Bank, IMF. Now China wants to have a developed bank to be headquartered in Shanghai. And so this is already the beginning of the new order. And of course, they want to replace or challenge Asian Development Bank to also that's controlled by United States and Japan. And already Xi Jinping talked about new Asia security concept, with China as the center, excluding the United States. So this is the kind of plan that China is doing. And yet, I think very few American decision makers understand that. We look at President Obama and his now new National Security Advisor, Susan Rice. She seems to take Xi Jinping's quest for major power relationship very seriously. She wants to operationalize the concept, making many Asian diplomats and government are rather apprehensive and worried. Somehow, Susan rice is seen as a supplicant in Beijing's eyes. And she was just in Beijing a few days ago. And if you have this type of decision maker who doesn't really understand what China's up to and try to ask China for help, ask China to be his Boy Scout, well, China is going to buy that. Now, Beijing certainly sees the pivot as a U.S. attempt to checkmate and to contain China's rise. Therefore, China has already developed and deployed anti-access and area denial capability to deter, delay, and defeat U.S. intervention in Asia. Well, how pivot has fared up to now. Already many different kind of criticism or look at the score. We will say that a policy, if it's to succeed, a strategy is to be effective. There should not be any really imbalance between ends and means. And today, we see, unfortunately, stark imbalance between American ends and means. Financial program, not enough resources, and really no willingness to use military power when necessary. That's going to really undermine this particular policy. I have 1 more minute to say that, okay, Taiwan has been absent, silent and voice in this pivot. United States doesn't take Taiwan seriously, and our government under Ma Ying-jeou certainly you want to please China, tilt towards China, and therefore Taiwan has not played any role. And there have been recommendations, suggestions from our 2 paper givers as to what Taiwan can do. Well, that kind of recommendation certainly could be seriously considered and taken if there's a new government in Taipei after 2016. I think that days certainly will be very different. And we hope, well, our American friends would not once more interfere in Taiwan's presidential election in 2016 like you did in 2012. Well, respect Taiwan's democratic process and also try to understand what China is up to. They are taking over Taipei in the election this coming November. And this is the beginning of the peaceful liberation of Taiwan. So if the United States understand what China is up to, well, you've got to do something. Thank you.